This is iDesign Lab, a podcast where creativity and curiosity meet style and design. Curator of interiors, furnishings, and lifestyles. Hosted by Tiffany Woolley, an interior designer and a style enthusiast, along with her serial entrepreneur husband, Scott. iDesign Lab is your ultimate design podcast, where we explore the rich and vibrant world of design and its constant evolution in style and trends. iDesign Lab provides industry insight, discussing the latest trends, styles, and everything in between to better help you style your life through advice from trendsetters, designers, influencers, innovators, fabricators, and manufacturers, as well as personal stories that inspire, motivate, and excite. And join us on this elevated, informative, and lively journey into the world of all things design. Today on the iDesign Lab podcast, we welcome Brent Look, a seasoned guitarist with over 35 years in the music industry. He's toured with legends, opened for icons like Aerosmith and Journey, and taught everyone from rock stars to pro athletes. He's a recording artist, producer, engineer, and instructor. Please welcome Brent Look.
Welcome to the iDesign Lab podcast. Today we have Brent Look, who we are fortunate enough to see at least once a week in our world.
Yes.
But who has designed a very exciting life around music.
Yes.
And has, quite a career and quite a story to tell. So we're welcome you today
Thank
here.
you. It's great to be here.
And introduce us
So
to you.
let me just say, Brent has been in the music industry for a long
Ever.
time.
Jumping in.
A session player. He's played with so many different great rock and roll bands, still does. I mean, we just heard that he was played at Mar-a-Lago with Kid Rock. Is that correct?
Kid Rock for Donald Trump.
For Donald Trump.
Yes.
I mean, how cool of a gig is that?
That was a great gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he stood up and gave us a big round of applause.
But you're
afterwards.
also a producer. You're a teacher. I mean, engineer, a songwriter.
Yes.
And you've worked with so many interesting and fun people
Yes,
over the years.
It's safe to say, you live, eat, and breathe music.
I live in, in fact, somebody was asking me, so what's your hobby?
Yeah.
I'm like, music?
But how did you design
so
a life
cute.
around music? How did you get into music? How did you first, is it the guitar or is it?
Because it's
Yeah,
a gift,
I first
too.
started with guitar.
Because you're an amazing, incredible guitar player as well.
Yes, I thank you.
Along
That's
with
really
just
nice
about
of you.
every other instrument you can think of.
Yeah, I started on guitar. I started taking lessons.
Oh, you did?
And then I branched out from that and I started doing piano. Because once you learn one instrument, to learn the next one is a little easier because you know how to practice, how to excel, what's important. Don't go down this rabbit hole. You'll waste a lot of time.
Right.
And then I picked up percussion, drums. And I always sang all along. And I took lessons, vocal lessons also.
But at what point did it kind of gravitate into
I
into
knew
a career?
I knew when I was oh wow. I knew when I was 13 years old that this was what I
Okay,
was
this
gonna
is
do.
it.
So
Yeah,
did you start a band?
Yes, I made a band. We used to practice in my house and drive my family crazy. So, because we were loud. But it was great. And then I kept putting bands together, then eventually, then we started playing some clubs. I found a band that we played clubs, the Moods. And then,
Was that in Florida?
Yes, it was in Florida.
Always in Florida.
Always in Florida for at least before a national thing happened. So we then I played with the Moods, and then we eventually got a deal, and we played at the producer for the Eagles studio, Bill Simzik, and it was Bayshore Recording Studio, which is my favorite studio of all time.
And where is that?
That was in Coconut Grove. It's
Really?
no longer there.
Yes.
The Eagles used to record there. The
Coconut
Long
Grove
Run
had
was
so many
recorded
great
there.
little plots like that.
Yeah, and that was under Sassoon Records and Film Works, which was a relative of Adele Sassoon.
Yeah.
So, and he used Eric Schilling. The great Eric Schilling was our engineer, who ended up engineering a lot of my projects.
Really?
Yeah, I did a lot with Eric. Eric's great. So he guided us. He did that, and then we had the Moods. We opened up for some national acts, the Aerosmith.
Really?
And, we opened for Aerosmith. We opened for Journey, and then I got involved. The band after that band kind of had its way. Everything was great, but there were issues in the band.
Personalities.
So Then we did Mood Candy, and we opened up for some of those other acts, that I've done, like the Blue Oyster Cult and Heart, Cheap Trick, and
So a lot of the
ones that were big at that
80s,
time.
Yeah.
Those are wonderful days. I have to tell you a funny story. One of our bass players, the first big gig we ever did, he told me, he goes, I'm like, wow, this is going to be a lot different than playing in a club when you open up for a huge act. And he goes, don't be nervous. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Everything's going to be fine. So we start playing. I calm down, and I have contacts, and I did have my contacts in, so I couldn't really make out the audience.
Oh,
so
really?
It was like a blur. And
Literally.
and then I look over at him, and I'm supposed to be nervous, right? And he's standing there like this. He was the one that was nervous.
That's so funny.
But I played for Giovanni, which is another artist. Ricky Eric was on Universal Music Group. And did some solo work.
So you've done this all in South Florida. So
yes, based in South Florida, but going different parts of the
Traveled.
country. And it was great.
Is there any one memorable like tour or
Anything with like the Scott Stapp. Anything with Scott Stapp was great because
So
I
Creed.
learned a lot from did some shows as Creed. Most of my shows were as Scott Stapp, solo artists, as
okay.
solo, and sometimes they were billed as Creed to create a thing overseas, like in Japan and stuff like
so
that.
you did that?
Yeah, we did the Japan thing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What a fabulous experience.
Yeah, it was really good, but there's a little sad part of that. We were invited through the State Department, and we went after the tsunami to go visit with victims' families.
Oh, wow.
And we went to where the main tsunami was, and then we went to the aircraft carrier George Washington and played for the troops.
So you played on the aircraft carrier?
Yes, we did.
What a memory.
Yeah.
What a memory.
Yeah,
So many great
it
ones,
was
I'm
like
sure, along the way.
me and Scott were like shell shocked when we saw how the tsunami impacted and how it was wiped out. It was
Yeah, I
tough.
feel like that's something you probably can only see to believe. Like
Yeah, you
you have
couldn't
to
believe
really
it.
see it.
We went where because we went through the U.S. government. We went where the average civilian was not allowed to go.
Wow.
So it was pretty incredible.
So some of the perks in going on tour.
Yeah, we were so tired. I remember doing the set list, and me and Scott were sitting in this room going, okay, here's the 13 songs. Now, on this page, there's 14 songs. We just put them in order, and we couldn't figure out what the problem is. It's the same songs in a different order. We were so tired because of the trip getting there, and they moved this pretty quickly. And after about 5 minutes, we're like, wait, we wrote the same song twice.
The things that happen on tour, right? So when did you know that this was going to be your career?
I actually knew it when I wanted it to be my career when I was 13, but when I was like 16, 17, I wasn't old enough to really be in these clubs, but they used to sneak me in. And I'd play for bands that were much older than me. And I got that experience. And, most of my bands were always, until big things happened, were always much older than me. Because I was at that level. So.
And so how would you go about finding these bands if they weren't like your school friends or
Usually
were they
it seemed
people
like they
down?
found me.
Okay.
So it's like I would be at a gig performing, and then other people would say, you know what, can you come jam with our band? And that's
But most people who are in the music business at an early age, like you're talking about, in your teens and so forth, or early 20s, aren't getting work on a regular basis. So did you have another job, or you were completely,
That was my job.
covering? So you
That was
is
always
you
amazing.
paid
my
all
job.
your bills just in music. You never had to get that
I think I
side
worked
job.
at a clothing store for a couple months.
Oh, really?
Right? I think it was called County Seed. It was
Oh
big
my
down
God, I
there.
remember that place.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
worked there for a couple months, but then because I said I don't have enough steady work, so that was my part-time thing. But things got really steady after that. It was pretty quick.
So working with so many different artists and well-known artists and well-known bands and groups and touring with them and so forth, there's been one big change that has happened over the years
Yes.
from when you started, analog
Yeah.
to today digital.
Digital.
You know, and now it's at a level where, you know, this records are actually coming back, which is
Yes.
great,
I
especially
know
for
it
our
is
kids.
That is
crazy,
great. That is
right?
wonderful.
It is awesome.
But how is that, like, has that affected your career, or
Oh yeah, but well, actually,
in
you
a
know,
good or better or bad, or?
there's two things. Now that I'm doing a lot of this stuff from releasing stuff under my own record label,
Okay.
Chart Top Records, and my publishing company, Addison Holdings Music Publishing. The old days, to get anything really big happening, you had to be under a
True.
major label.
Makes sense.
And there's no guarantee that that's going to work out.
Right.
Right.
Today, it's kind of timed itself out right for me. Because today, we know a lot of these big labels are asking these big artists to be on their label, where they're begging for artists a lot of times, because people that are famous, like, you know, that are really big, they can do it themselves. They can,
Right.
they might use them for distribution,
Right.
but it's completely different. Back then, we remember that concert tickets were very inexpensive.
I know.
sure
I
were.
love what's happening now.
But,
Yeah.
but music artists are making their
changes
money
again.
with selling their albums,
Yeah.
and weren't making much on touring. Touring was about promoting the album because
That's
it's
so
where you
true.
made your money.
It's opposite
But
now.
today it's the yeah, you're correct.
It's the opposite, and the merchandising.
And the
merchandising
merchandise.
was
Merch.
always kind of a big deal, even back
Mm-hmm.
then. But I mean, these tours, some of these major acts are putting together. They're cleaning up on these tours.
Right. And I do like the fact that Kid Rock recently did make it pretty well known that he's trying to make a passion project to make tour, or I should say concert tickets, affordable again, because it's something that has eluded so many.
It's crazy what the ticket prices
Families.
Ticket prices are crazy. They're out of control because a lot of times, you know, there's another seller involved.
Mm-hmm.
A
People
couple
buy
in
up.
between.
Yeah, that's so true. And before you know it, I mean, some of these people, like, we never had this issue years ago where people couldn't afford to go see their favorite artist.
Correct. That's just crazy.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things
it's out
have
of hand.
changed in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take it back a little bit
Okay.
again further. So you now decide you're making your career through music.
Yes.
What did you do on like a general basis to stay booked or to stay, you know, ahead of things? Like what did your day-to-day look like with this as
Well,
your career?
we had people that were booking agents that
Okay.
we had, for the longest time, we had King Music, which was this guy named Walter B. Walters. He was the brother of Suzanne Summers'
Okay.
manager. So,
Suzanne Summers' manager was her husband, Alan Hamilton.
yeah, that
I
was
dealt
the brother.
with both.
That's
I dealt
right.
with both of them.
Yeah, so this guy, I think this was another manager before that time.
Okay.
Because it didn't start out like that.
Okay.
Yeah, this was an earlier manager. So, because we're going back a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So that always seemed like there was work, and then if we couldn't find work, somebody else in the band, my friend Andy, who played bass guitar, would make some phone calls and do it. They didn't want me to do it so much because they wanted me to focus on writing.
Okay.
So to do everything you've done, did you need to have a manager, an agent, a
Yeah,
lawyer?
we had agents like that.
Do you still? Is it still important?
No, I've been doing it myself. I think just only for the fact that I've been involved in this for so long, I know how it works. Even though
Right.
it's changed, there are many principles of it that have stayed the same.
Right.
Well, and I feel like it's so cool to watch, like, because through my girls, obviously the passion for music that
Yes.
has been carried on through you as well. I like Benson Boone is coming to mind because
That's right.
I'm fascinated myself just watching this evolution of growth, I
Yes.
guess. And obviously he's the big name that people know and recognize.
Yes.
But I feel like now there's so much more emphasis on like his other band members, like at least for my girls and I
Yes.
guess because we saw them and, you know, his girl guitar became like kind of like, I don't know, we now see her at Coachella. Like, so people think of the headliner instead of realizing the whole crew and the whole group and what it really does take to put together
Yes.
a band. And there's so many other people having amazing careers besides just Benson Boone. I mean, that whole band has an incredible journey ahead.
True. And the band thing is something to talk about too, because it's been for a while lately that we, like you were saying, we only know the front person in this band or the main artist, and we don't know who the other band members are. But in the old days, we knew these
You're
bands.
right.
We
Yes.
knew
You did.
all the people
You
in
did.
these bands.
You're
Correct.
right. You're right. Because look at, like, with Benson Boone, I mean, Queen, they're bringing out,
Brian May.
right. And highlighting all that. I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to bring full circle.
I hope that comes
as
back more, because these people are a big part of it.
Right.
I mean, without them, it doesn't work. And another thing that you're starting to see a little bit more of, we went through a period of time where different tours were always completely different background performers in the band. And you're seeing a lot of these bands keep some of these people, and they're part of the band. Mm-hmm. That's it. This is the band.
Well, I think a lot of it is music's changed over the years. So in the 80s and the 90s, there were bands, the
That's
Bon
true.
Jovis, the Billy Joels, the Springsteens. And
They came up
Aerosmith.
together, literally.
Yeah, and you did know all the members of
That's
the
true.
band. But then as rap came in and,
Became one guy.
It became one person, even though there are other people, but you never knew. It wasn't discussed, those names
That's
and those
true.
people.
Or the longevity wasn't there either.
True. That's true. I mean, it's a welcome change if we start seeing knowing more members in these bands, if they keep the same band,
Which
so.
I feel like is so critical to actual music.
Yes,
I mean,
it is. And, and a lot of these bands that we grew up with, they all played a part in writing of these tunes. It wasn't like the writers were completely, now we know that there are people that write songs and the bands and artists end up using them, but there was a lot of music coming from inside that band.
yes.
Creating inside that band.
And when you say creating music, is that the tune or is that the lyrics?
That can be both.
Could be
a
both.
lot of times, whoever the singer is will obviously do the lyrics. But sometimes it happens by somebody else that might be great at lyrics. They just don't sing well. So we're having our
We've
lead
had
singer
that
sing the song.
conversation,
Yes,
a few times.
What's that?
We've had some of these behind the scene conversations
Yes,
of
it's
like,
Well,
somebody.
we're going through that process now with you, with
Yes,
with the Ruffles.
the Ruffles. It's going to be a great band.
So, started writing songs, and now you're producing those songs,
Yes.
bringing those songs to life.
Yes.
The whole design process and creating and making a song, and hopefully it becomes a magical song that people will love and follow and want to play and listen to.
That's
and it's
true.
quite a process, in creating songs and just from the writing and then, putting the right instruments behind it.
Yes, and when we record them in the studio, they're going to learn a lot from that also. Seeing how it's put together right there. Like, you know what? I think there should be a keyboard part on that part.
Correct.
And I think the band should drop out now. We've done a lot of that now without being in the studio, and I kind of guide them. I try not to create the part for them. I try to guide them in the direction where they'll come up with it. But the process of thinking, like on the latest song, the bridge, there's no bridge. Well,
Right.
what if we go to F? I mean, it's in the key. We haven't gone there once. Let's go there.
Right.
So
So how is that process when you're in a recording studio with, a Scott Stapp or someone
Yeah.
else? Is it an arduous process? Is it a process that just comes out? I wrote a book recently, and I explained to people it was like giving birth to a baby. Like,
'Cause you know how
it was
that is,
the
I'm
aggravation of just the
It's tough.
stress of trying to get all the words out and get your thoughts out.
right.
But-
And why it's in your head to get it down.
Right.
But how
And it's
difficult
in
is
your
that?
head, you just have to
How
get it out.
difficult is that from a standpoint of producing a song? And
Well, you kind of have an idea of what you want, but when you get into a full studio, you might hear things a little different. And you're like, now that I'm hearing it back, I kind of want to change that part. So you have an outline, but anything goes in there. I mean, there's been times that in my studio, I'll come up with a part that goes over a verse or chorus. Like this song is missing something. And you'll come up with the part in the studio on the spot. And you're like, that makes it. That makes it completely. And it's production. What can I do? Something I learned from the great Eric Schilling that always taught me, Eric, because Eric's had a lot of success. And And he always told me, he goes, it's like a film. He said, and you know film
Right.
very well. He goes, it's like a film. Do you think the audience is getting bored? You know, and when we told me, when we worked on writing songs, when he helped me a lot too, like with production stuff early on, because he did a lot of my stuff. So he would say, you know what, you're losing your my attention here on this part. You're on the second verse. What I like the first verse and chorus. What are you going to do on the second verse to keep me interested? That's different than that first verse. That keeps the verse together. You add this. Let's do this. Maybe have this happen. Take this out. Now the second chorus. We're up to the second chorus. Let's make it a little busier than the first chorus. You know.
For people who are listening and watching this podcast, explain to them Eric Schelling.
Eric Schilling is somebody who played a major part in my early parts of my career, all the way up through early 2000s, did a bunch of my solo projects, did the Moods, my first band, did Mood, which was a derivative of the Moods band, and then the other derivative of the Mood band, Mood Candy, he did that too, and he's done some of my solo stuff. Eric is
He's worked with a lot of other...
Yeah, Eric has 31 platinum albums under his belt, and I think I don't know, 17 Grammys, something crazy, and a couple of Emmys. And I know he does the audio production for, I believe, the Grammys and the Latin Grammys. So, but I learned a lot from him because he was working with these artists. He wasn't a producer on most of that. He was an engineer, but he's sitting next to these producers all the time for so many years.
Yeah, it's like
learning
seeped
from
in,
them.
yeah.
So I learned a lot from that.
So what was your rock and roll is probably your primary genre, but you're versatile. How do you keep yourself able to
do all?
Yeah,
and I
mix it
have
all
to
up.
jump and wear a lot of different hats.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that could be tough sometimes, but when I was trained young, I did rock a lot of my own time as far as lessons I'm talking, but I took classical and I took jazz, both on guitar and piano, and then I studied it also under drums. So I knew, I learned a lot from those. I even had a jazz guitar teacher tell me once, he goes, you're learning all this stuff with me. You're going to take all this stuff you're learning, you're going to put it into a rock song right now. I'm like, yeah.
That's when you know it's so innate.
So do you
too,
like
though,
rock
I
better
feel
than...
like.
Rock is my favorite thing, but but classical is pretty awesome. And,
So
you've
been a teacher for a long time.
Yes.
With a lot of interesting students.
Yes.
As, in teaching music and teaching drums, teaching piano, teaching guitar, working with vocals.
Yes.
Helping create songs.
Yes.
And so forth. I mean,
It's been fun.
You're a teacher to our three kids.
Yes, I love working with them.
and guiding them in their career. But Jill DeFerrin, who was a very good
took
friend
some
of ours,
guitar from me.
Dan Marino's kids.
I
mean,
taught.
tell us about teaching people. How is that teaching individuals?
Yeah, well, it gives me. It's different than teaching in class because from the first lesson on, I'm studying them. See what even if they're from the beginning, what comes easy to them, what comes harder to them, and that kind of gives me a roadmap. Okay, we're going to do this, but I'm also going to spend a little time extra on this because that's a little harder for them. And the bottom line is when I teach, I want them to learn what they need, and I teach them songs that I think they're going to need to help their skills. And I also teach them stuff that they like.
Right.
Because if they like it, the motivation is big.
Well, you have a unique way of teaching as well. You're a very positive, motivating individual that really seems to home in on an individual and lift them up in teaching them. I mean, I've seen it firsthand.
I want them to love it.
You have a talent in just how you interact with people and teaching them. Did you learn that from someone? Did you experience that from
I've always
someone?
done that. I just
Always
want to
been a
motivate. Positive
person,
motivation,
happy.
and get them to believe, but also tell them if you got to spend more time, you got to work harder here.
How bad do you want
But
it?
how bad do you want it?
But most people look at, okay, I got to learn music, or as kids learn, this is going to be a pain in the ass. Oh, this is a drudgery. but you changed that whole feeling.
Yeah, I'm always trying to figure out the situation. How am I going to get this person motivated? What do they like?
Right.
What am I going to do to get them the motivation is the big thing.
Yeah, I think that what we're talking about from a music standpoint and lessons is so important for the youth, and I'll say in this country, because I know that when we went to school, music was a big thing in school.
Yes.
Today,
It died for a while.
It's still to a big
It's not
degree. It's
what it
not what it
was.
was.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
at
and the
all.
arts and a little the arts, and it's good for their thinking.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah.
gives them something to
Of
do.
course.
It's good
It's like
for
speaking
learning.
another language. Totally.
Yeah, how to perfect, how to get good.
Well,
even
it's-
with competition, like if they're in school band or something, it's a competition, and life is a competition.
It's so true.
What I see the most important is the self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
It gives the confidence it gives kids
Yes.
to be able to get up in front of people and play. Like our kids now, they can't wait to get
For
up
the
in
next-
front of
for-
the
yeah,
next
stage.
gig.
I love that about them.
They can't
They
wait.
love it. I
They really
love
do.
that.
They really do. They played
Yeah.
all day Sunday too.
Yeah,
at
it's
Easter.
their
They
thing.
it really is.
I love working with them, and they do really well individually, and then the audience, I'll tell them then we play together as a band,
yes.
and that's great to be able to work on them one-on-one, and then we play as a band.
And they started harmonizing, and it's so impressive. And I also find them picking up new things so much faster.
That's right.
I mean, that makes me understand a little bit more behind my own love of music, but to realize like this is a vibe and
It
a
is.
flow.
And once they learn, let's say they learn this song with harmony, this song with harmony, the next song to do the harmony, even if it's a different harmony, is going to be easier. So I was telling them, in some bands, I would sing lead on some songs, and some songs I would sing harmony on the choruses or verses or whatever. And I was telling them, I'm like, after a while, it just becomes natural. They sing the lead line, you hear it, and you just harmonize it right away.
Right.
That's what'll happen.
So you've worked with so many interesting, unique, and great, music artists and
Yes.
and so forth. Is there any one trait that you kind of see that they all have that makes them, great? Is there
One of the things it's like the dedication.
the dedicate? Yeah.
to the
Like
craft.
So it's very much like an athlete. So music
It
artists
is.
and
It is.
athletes.
I think it is.
It's the dedication, the
it's
time, and
totally dedication. They want it so bad.
Yep, they live.
They
eat,
live and breathe it.
Breathe. Yeah.
Obviously, especially with with anybody, they have to keep doing what they're doing, like to be in school and do well there. And if they have a job, they have to keep doing well at their job. But their spare time is like so dedicated to music. And some artists get to, I was very fortunate. I hardly had to work a real job ever. So,
Right, which is really amazing
I
that
got
you
lucky
were
in that
able
regard.
to build a life of doing what you love. That's why they say you never
Yes.
work a day in your life then.
Yeah, and it's like anything else. It's networking, and and putting yourself out there.
And you've had a lot of growth through the industry yourself. I mean, what would be like your favorite part of it, I guess? What is your most exciting part of being in this industry?
I think the most
playing,
exciting part is building something. I love building songs.
Yep.
I love building songs with other artists. I really do love performing too.
So you're using the word build. Like I would use the word create.
Create, yes. That's a
But you're
different
building
word.
upon something by adding, I think of it, because you're adding layers to it as you're designing
That's true.
it and
And I
creating
probably
it.
always call it, because in general, I use the word build a lot, because when I was in high school, I used to hang out with this guy that used to build custom guitars.
Oh, wow.
And start from the beginning and build the guitar. I learned a lot.
So how do you even talk about an instrument? Like, how do you know if your instrument is good? Or, I mean, obviously it sounds good, but how do you evolve and grow in that whole genre? I mean,
to my
just
particular instrument?
Yeah, the instruments.
Yeah,
and
I
knowing
usually
which
try to
ones
use.
are better.
So what are you kind of saying? Like, what's the difference? The difference
Yeah,
between
the brands and are they keeping up? Like we were having a podcast the other day, and they were saying like how, for example, Tiger Woods signed a deal with Nike, and supposedly like Nike's instruments were they're his golf clubs, but they were terrible. You know, like so
we
it's
see
like,
that all
how
the time
do you,
in endorsement things.
right? Like how do you align yourself with certain guitar? I mean, I've seen your collection's pretty impressive, and it's just, I guess, how do we, as a layperson,
well, it's like
it?
Tiger Woods and like a lot of these people, they're pro at whatever they do.
Mm-hmm.
They start to figure out over the years what is the best thing for them. Doesn't mean it's the best instrument for somebody else.
Right?
But it usually should mean that a really name brand quality company, you'll probably find something there. But I have found instruments that are
Terrible.
off brands, and for some reason I'm like, why does this sound so good, and why does this play so good? I could have gotten lucky, because even if things come off assembly lines, especially with instruments like guitars and violins, no two are ever the same.
Which is that's a whole
and
nother.
you might get lucky and find something really amazing. And we will see some of these artists, like especially with guitar players and bass players, like Sting's been using the same bass forever. We saw, some of these guitar players, Brian May's been using the same guitar forever.
Really?
Yeah, they built that, I think, themselves. Him and his father, I think, built that guitar when he was younger. So, but I have certain things that I really like. And if it feels good in my hand and sounds good, and because I'm getting older, I just want to make sure that I can play. I play a lot. If you count how much I play with my students,
Right.
I'm playing all day. So, I mean, it's nonstop. And then when I'm not playing with my students, I'm practicing at home. My hands are getting, like when I get people to tell me they're young and go, my hand hurts, I'm like, you ain't
You have
seen
no
nothing
idea.
yet.
I mean, your hands need to be insured. I mean, those are your
life.
Those are your life, yeah.
But when I find a guitar that sounds really good and I like the way it is, we're using guitar as an example, and I can play all day and I have no hand pain, that's a winner for me.
Really?
Yeah, because the guitars that I have, there's reason I have these different guitars. I could play nonstop, have no hand pain.
That's amazing, actually.
Something with the design.
Obviously.
Yeah, and I had a guitar company build a custom guitar for me once, and everything was really good, and they couldn't get the wood after a while. They were building this custom guitar, and I designed it. It was going to be great. Then they couldn't get the wood they were supposed to get, and not thinking that when they finished the guitar, instead of weighing 8 pounds, it weighed 13 and a half pounds.
That's crazy. So what is the weight of an average guitar?
I would say somewhere around 8 pounds, 8.5. You could go up to 9. They vary. Like if you look at the same guitar out of the same factory, same model, they can vary a little bit. But I kept telling my wife when I had that guitar, I'm like, my leg is going numb. I wonder if there's something wrong with me. And she's like, have you been playing that guitar? It was literally it was pointy. It was literally making my leg go numb. And then I sold
my
it.
gosh.
But you play a wide range of instruments.
Yes.
I mean, guitar being your primary. Do you prefer any other instruments? Like,
I love piano. I love piano and I love drums a lot. Percussion is great. I mean, it's the whole groove of the song.
Yeah. It's the majority of the songs.
So have you,
too.
in your course of producing music and creating music, are you laying tracks where you're playing all the instruments?
Yes. I've done complete albums, done all the instruments. I did this one thing billed under Mood Candy through a Canadian label. I did that. I played every instrument on that record. I played all the drums, all the bass, all the guitars, all the keyboards, all the vocals. And then Eric Schilling came in and helped me put it all together and fix some of my small engineering errors.
To me, there's so many different brain powers that you're doing.
Hard.
I mean, it's really like a lot of, and even with now like the amps and all that kind of, like to me, I don't even understand how all that works.
Yeah, a lot of times, we'll use amps, but we also have things that go directly into the computer now that sound very good. But I'm still an amp guy. I have an endorsement deal with the Highwan Amplification Company, and I love their stuff. So they've been very good to me. So I'll use it. They found me online.
It's amazing.
They found you online.
They found me online and was doing a video of me playing through a high watt amplifier, and they really liked it. And they reached out to me, would you like to be an endorsed artist? Sure.
Why not?
I use them all the time.
Well, and I would think too, you could bring such, other people to their amp.
Yes,
by, like,
and they've
your
grown a
student
lot these
growth.
last
That-
years. In the 70s, that amplifier company, everybody was using them. They were all these old videos of studio stuff. You'll always see one of those high watts there.
Really?
But now they've made a comeback, and
Why
they're
do you
getting
think?
big
Why
again.
do you think they've made a comeback?
Well, it's been bought and sold a couple times, and there was some deal where they couldn't use the name in North America. I don't know what that deal was, but now they own the full rights again, and the production is up, and there are major music stores across many nations are starting to pick them up again.
So you've opened for a lot of very interesting and great bands.
And it's been fun. Yes.
So when you're opening up for a band,
Yes.
like Journey or Aerosmith,
Yes.
I mean, what goes through your head before getting on stage where you're opening up for a band like that? Are you trying to get on stage that the crowd likes you better than,
Yeah, I think there's always a competition factor in me, even though I know that people are there to see the other band mostly, and pretty much a lot. And the sound might not be as good as them.
Why is that?
I always think that they don't turn everything on
Oh,
for
that's
the
so
opening act.
funny to think that.
Really?
Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's
I
so
don't know how it
funny.
is now, but I used to think that. I'm like, yeah, these EQs right here, we'll leave them off for them.
That's
So you don't
funny.
have someone on your little
We have
your
somebody on
team?
our end, but they're not going to be completely familiar with the whole setup
Right.
that they're running, because we, especially back in the analog days, we know how much gear was all over the place. Tell you, it's more digitally oriented.
Is it
Right.
really?
Yeah, so it's a lot less gear, a lot less.
So do you
plug-in.
you think that's good or bad? Do you prefer the analog or? Do you
I think the analog is really cool, but I think cost-wise,
the
doing a tour,
digital.
I mean, the digital's better. Digital with the light show might not be as bright sometimes.
Right.
Because some of that analog stuff was, wow, as we know, 500-watt cans of lights or 1,000 watts melt the drummer.
Right.
Right.
Like, poor guy.
That's pretty interesting that they may not.
Yeah,
Like,
I always
make you sound
You
or
know
let
what's
you sound?
wild is I came up with that thing one time, and I thought I can't remember, but what artist was the headliner? But I saw this band Stars, STARZ, and they had some success. Many big artists thought they were a great band. They were managed by the same people that did Kiss. And
Okay.
they
Oh, wow.
didn't get a lot of attention. Everything was geared towards Kiss.
That was Doc McGee.
No, I think Doc might have something. Bill Acoin or something.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah. Uh-huh.
I think that's what it was. And I saw them open up. Now I can't remember the name of the headlining act figures. I saw them open up. I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Then I saw them in town 2 months later in a smaller venue, being the headliner, and it sounded great. And I was like, that's weird.
Huh.
That's why I started getting this idea.
But it could have been the venue.
Could have been the venue, but they frequency analyze all that stuff, But it's much better.
So being in the music industry as long as you have, has there been a significant change that you would say has been the most significant change in the industry being in it? From when you started to where we are today.
Well, obviously, one of the things we talked about was
the changing of the
the
tour.
tours are the big money-making item. The streams, the artists don't get much off each stream. It's like, what?
I don't even understand all that.
0.005 cents per stream or something.
So
Or
when you say stream,
0.003.
that's not somebody buying the song.
right, because there's no
it's
physical
just-
item.
It's a download of like.
Right.
Or just a stream where you're just listening to it.
Well, it's like a BMI ASCAP kind of royalty where it's so small.
It's
'cause it was
yeah.
just got to play.
Well, and it's like now there's music that you can add to a post on social media, and like
That's true.
there's just the music is.
But that also makes it so, me being a smaller artist, that I have so many different outlets to do this
Yeah, you
myself
can.
now.
So do you
people
have
can
a
access you.
library of music
I was
that you own, that it's yours? That
Yeah.
do you monetize it? Do you?
Yeah, I have stuff that's monetized. Most of that stuff will come on YouTube when it's monetized, the commercials. YouTube is probably the best bet for any of that because when you do Spotify, Apple, and everything, it's the small percentage what we talked about. And the way you get around that is if you're a superstar, like instead of getting like 1 million albums sold, you can get billions of streams.
Right.
Right.
'Cause I had expected somebody recently. They're like,
but the billion streams still doesn't, in these days and times, doesn't equate to very much money.
but it equates a lot better than smaller artists. Smaller artists aren't making much at all.
Correct.
But the YouTube is probably the best thing because you get that similar money off that, but you also have commercials you get money off of. We're not talking big unless you're big,
Right.
unless you really catch on. But you do have the two aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a catalog. I own some stuff I split up with a bunch of people that wrote it, but most of the stuff I own all the rights. So
Would you ever share those and have other people produce it or sing
Yes.
it or yeah?
Yes, I would do that. I would totally do that. I did this one thing where I did a Volkswagen commercial once. They took one of my songs, and I got money from that, and not enough, but I got money from that, and they took my vocals off the song. Can you send me the song? Can you send us the song without the vocals? I'm like, why, you don't like my vocals? No, it's a background thing,
Oh, that's so
yeah.
funny.
So is there a good career in creating music like that and trying to sell it, trying to license it?
Yeah, I think today, unless you're on tour, I think the best way is to try to get other avenues, try to like get other people to do your songs, because you're not out there promoting it, And years ago, I was always out there promoting for years and years and years and years. I think I'm just burnt out on that whole thing, but I miss it a little bit. So.
So if there was, I got a question, and if there was one artist
Yes.
that you could sit down with
Yes.
and ask them a question or two,
Oh, that's tough.
who would that artist be? What would that question be? Is there an artist that you maybe never sat and you would have loved to have sat with and asked?
Oh, boy, that's really tough. Wow.
Prince.
You know what would be great to talk to? Would be, and this is not
So
my...
I know who mine is.
What is yours? Just curiosity. Tell me yours.
Mine? Well, I've met so many.
You've
and
met
had the
so many.
opportunity to sit with so many. Elvis
Yes.
Presley.
We're
That
so
is-
obsessed with Elvis.
Elvis would be,
Well,
that's a great answer.
A couple of years, like 3 years ago at Christmas time with my whole family and relatives, and there must have been 30 people sitting around the table having Christmas dinner. We were all asking everyone, I don't know if you remember this, everyone was asking, who would you like to meet?
That's
Who is
a
the one
great
person you'd like
question.
to meet? And I've always thought the one person that I have never met, I would love to spend a day with,
Yes.
would be Elvis Presley.
Wow, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
That's tough to beat, that answer.
And what would you ask him?
I mean, I would love to met Jimi Hendrix. I don't know if I would have spent the day with
yeah.
him.
Yeah.
But I was, I spent time with Richie Blackmore, so I
Right.
couldn't do that when I was a 15-year-old kid. I got to jam with the guy.
You were telling me that.
Yeah, and I said, yeah, I know the song backwards and forwards and backwards. And I played it for him. He goes, that's really good, but that's wrong. Right? And then he sat there, and everybody's like, wow, you got him on a good day.
So Jimi Hendrix might be a person that you...
Jimi Hendrix, but also, which is surprising for me, I'd like to sit down with Elton John and watch him play. Because
talent,
he blows me
too.
away. At this age, he's on stage, and he's jamming out a lot of these parts.
We got the opportunity, it's
Long time
a
ago.
long time ago,
Yeah.
small little group of people in a room for dinner.
Yeah.
And then Elton was there at dinner, got up, got on the piano, and for 90 minutes, just him and the piano.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you, it sounded like he had the entire band behind him, and it was just him singing and playing the piano, and it was the sound that he got out of that piano was just...
Wow.
And Tiffany and I sat there, and we were just like... And we were like 10 feet from him while he put an hour and a half playing. It was amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Well, and
Wow.
he's like one of those once in a generational individuals too.
He
But
is.
I've always loved how he had that partnership with that Bernie Taub.
Yeah, that worked.
And it worked. And they knew it, and they
They still have
babied
it.
it,
Yeah.
and they just basted it and really took it to another level.
Yeah, and I think some people forget how much of an amazing piano player he is.
Oh.
Because last time I saw him play I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, he's up there playing, and I know they're jamming out. I mean, I'm talking like, his performances are like flawless.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's off the top of his head.
I've seen him many times.
Yeah.
Him and Billy Joel, him by himself.
Yeah.
Remember that
But-
face-to-face
Oh, that was
tour?
awesome.
Oh,
But the
so
night
good.
that he got up and played for all of us, I mean, I'm telling you that he played for 90 minutes, and it sounded like he had the entire band with him, because the sound he got out of that piano was incredible, and his voice was just off the Richter scale.
Yeah, I saw him recently with somebody. I can't remember on the TV. I can't remember who it was. And this was recent. I know he's not touring, but he's still going to do some shows.
Oh,
Right,
yeah, he
right,
does, yep.
right.
Yeah, and I was still blown away. I'm like, wow, he's older, and his vocal, because, when people get older, they start to lose their vocal a little bit. I always say the people that lose it first, he still got it.
He
Are the
does.
ones that yelled their whole rock career.
I had a music teacher in high school who told me that. I forget what artist. He was like, that person will not have a voice in 10 years or something
That's so
like that.
true.
It
It's
was
amazing, like Steven
they're
Tyler lasted this
pulling,
long.
Which
Well, I
he's-
remember as a kid, Tom Jones, they used to say that about,
Yeah,
that his voice wouldn't last, but he's still
yeah.
playing.
Why?
still
Because
got
they're
it.
like
He was
pulling from a different vocal
yeah,
place
he would
or
yell
something.
it out. He was a
True.
great performer as well.
Yeah, and see, like I saw Duran Duran recently in Vegas, and he sounds great. No yelling in that.
Right.
No yelling. And then who else was I saying? Oh, my friend saw Steve Miller and he said, Brent, he sounded great. I'm like, that's because he never yelled.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
It does play a
There's
part.
so Jimi
staying
Hendrix.
power.
Anyone else besides Jimi Hendrix?
Oh, that's rough. I would have said the Elvis thing in my top 3 because that changed rock and roll.
I know.
I would have loved to sit down with Chuck Berry.
Well, I've had that opportunity many
Oh,
times.
you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. I mean, like he changed everything for guitar too. And there were so many times in guitar polls, we get mad and we look at our favorite thing and we look at top 10 or top 20 polls and we're like, why is that person not in there? Why are you up on number 3? You should be on 23, And now I see him creep more up in these polls.
Yeah.
It's like an athlete sometimes, and I hate like when they do athlete stuff, they compare records today compared to years ago. I'm
Yeah,
like,
you can't.
that's not fair,
It's
man.
not. I agree.
Yeah, so think about the training.
Well,
we have
if you
to do.
compare it the same way and you think what you're saying and you think about music,
Yeah,
think about the amount of artists from years ago that performed, sang, but could really play an instrument.
yeah,
Either it be piano or guitar or drums. Today, like, who are the bands that are coming out today
yeah.
that you can say they're really great on the guitar or the drums? Or
That's true, and we can fix everything digitally.
Yeah, which is kind of bizarre to think
It
about.
is. Today, a long time ago, I learned because I would charge when I did studio work, I would charge kind of by the hour. I say, but 3 hour minimum, right? Right? And then you go in and they copy and paste your parts all over the place. And I'm like, I'm only doing 3 hours. But the old days, I was probably there making money the whole day. Yeah, but I learned that lesson really quickly. Then Eric Schilling taught me, he goes, you can't charge like that anymore. These are not the old days. You charge by the project.
right.
Have you ever
Yeah.
played a music festival?
Yes, I've played some music festivals. Boy, that was a long time ago. I did that with the Moods bands where there are many, many different bands.
Yeah.
That one I have not. Now, if I would have stayed with the Scott Stapp thing, he's been doing more music festivals a lot recently than he's ever done. So that's how they're making these big concerts, They get all these people to come there.
Correct.
They
That's what I
bring
mean.
their
I mean, it's
fans,
like
these people bring their
Stagecoach is
fans.
this weekend.
Right.
I'm like
There you go.
seeing all that. Like Stagecoach, I think, is this weekend. Or,
Yeah.
You know,
But you know what? I'd love to do some festivals. That'd be a lot of fun.
So going back to, because you've played with so many different and interesting and great people.
Yes.
Is there an individual,
Yes.
if you had the opportunity to play with, that you never have, who would that be?
Oh, that's really tough. Boy, that's really tough. Boy.
Dead, or, they could be dead or alive.
Oh, they can be dead or alive. That's a song, by the way. Wow. I would have loved to jam with the Hendrix. That would have been probably one of my big ones. And there was a jazz guy named Alan Holsworth, who's a guitar player's guitar player. Like, people that are really legendary guitar players have talked about, that guy scares me.
Really?
He's just so great. And so Eddie Van Halen.
Is he still alive?
He died some years ago, 4 or 5 years, I believe. Eddie Van Halen even paid for one of his records. You know, and other famous guitar players go, that guy is like, even heavy metal guys, you wouldn't think, because he was like jazz fusion. Even heavy metal guys go, like, I saw somebody the other day, this guy Yngwie Malmsteen, who's a very famous heavy metal guitar player, says, who blew you away the most? He goes, Alan Holdsworth. He goes, my God.
Really?
That being a guy.
I'm not familiar with that name.
Or I did get to jam with Jaco Pastori, the legendary bass player who passed away, but I never got to spend time with him, you know.
Right.
That would have been awesome. Yeah. So,
Interesting.
but the Hendrix thing I would think would be awesome.
I mean, I feel like everybody with a guitar passion wants 5 minutes of that.
Yeah, or Eddie Van Halen would be another good one for me, for guitar.
He's another one that was gone too soon, too.
Yeah. But as far as the day with, that would be Elton John.
Elton John.
Yeah, I want to watch him play, because piano, I love piano too. And can you show me that run?
Songwriting is so, to me,
Yeah,
it's
how'd you come up with that?
lyrics, yeah, and I love hearing the stories behind all those
That's
too.
right.
What are your thoughts on these artists coming up today? Like,
I'm
are
starting
you
to really
impressed,
like.
or,
Yes,
yeah?
I'm getting impressed again.
Okay.
There was a period of time, and I have nothing against rap, but I'm just saying there was rap.
Yes.
And I don't have anything against rap.
Right.
I kind of like the old school rap better
Right.
because it was
So do I.
fun
Yes.
and not so
Most
serious,
people
and it was
did.
fun.
Most people do, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't as dark. It
wasn't
was-
as dark. That's a great way
Yeah.
to put it. But some of these new artists that are coming up are very
I know.
talented.
I feel so excited again myself. Maybe I'm only paying attention to it because my kids are, bringing it to my forefront. But I feel like we're like kind of in this resurgence of
I agree
like
with that.
bands and teams and music and the words, the lyrics. They're, clever.
But they're music artists that are basically singers. A lot of them don't write their own music.
Yes,
Agreed.
And most of them don't play an instrument.
that's
Well,
true.
Maybe
Well,
they know how to play an instrument, but they're not performing. with
Right,
their
they're not
instrument on
showing
stage.
their
Like
skill
you mentioned Benson
on-
Boone, who's very popular.
They're
Yeah.
not showing their
Correct.
skill on an instrument with
yeah,
their vocal.
he doesn't.
Right.
We don't have as
Morgan
much of
Wallen,
that.
I agree.
Just
He's
another one who's playing stadiums, but
He's singing.
singing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
he's singing.
You got to give some respect to Taylor Swift because she plays the piano, she plays
Plays
the guitar.
And she's a worker.
Yes, well, 3.5-hour concerts.
Like-
And
wow.
with her,
Yeah.
she does like promote I would say her opening acts are literally huge.
That's true.
I mean, my girls felt like they went to a whole nother concert.
But
Like,
can I tell you something? She is so big, and her opening acts are so important. But I think she'd sell the thing out all by herself.
Oh,
oh,
absolutely.
without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Like, wow. We haven't seen anything like this with her, with an artist, in a while. That's a newer artist,
No.
But, if you think back, we have artists in the past, like 20 years ago or so, that like when John Mayer was really breaking
Okay,
out.
you're right.
That guy
He
could
was
sing
another
great
one
and play great.
So
Yeah.
I never really cared for him,
Yeah.
but I was involved in promoting a jingle ball
Yeah.
a number of years ago.
and he was like one
and
of
he
the
was
big-
he wasn't a headliner. He played in the middle of the 10 acts and so forth. And I happened to get like 10 tickets. We sat right in the front row in the center
Yeah.
because I was
My
very
kids
involved
want to
in
know why
producing.
he doesn't have that pull anymore.
But I
Gotcha.
took a
Got
bunch
you.
of Tiffany and I. We took a bunch of great good friends and so forth. And he got up with a stool
Yeah.
Sat on the edge of the stage right up front with the stool and the guitar, and I was blown away. I could not believe that this guy could just rip a guitar. Just was fantastic.
He's so good.
Had a whole nother respect for him after that show.
You know, I think you stumbled upon something that I think that I know this, but I don't talk about it. People that can carry the whole thing by themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
A one-man band,
That's
literally.
tough.
He sat there, I mean, on a little stool. Never stood up on the stool with the guitar, and for 25 minutes, because they were all short, you know, the Jingle Ball is, and he just, every song was just...
Yeah. He can do the writes most of his own songs.
He does write.
Sings.
Yes.
And sings very well and plays very well.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen as much anymore.
But I feel like there was like he didn't grow through. Like I feel like he kind of
He just disappeared. But we went to another thing. It was actually for a wake for a person that we knew, a friend. We went to Minnesota, and Rob Thomas,
Yeah.
in a small little place, performed in honor of our friend because he knew him.
Yeah.
Same thing when Rob got up. You know, he stood, I don't know, played for 20 minutes, and he was guitar and him singing.
That's just awesome.
Yeah, and I took it was like another whole respect for him. Like
Another very good singer.
Like
he's a talent
he
too.
kept everyone just mesmerized by that 15, 20 minutes that he sang.
Yeah.
Played the guitar.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done a big show where it's by myself, but it wouldn't bug me. I'd do it. I did shows with the Scott Stapp where sometimes we didn't have a band and it'd be a large audience with just me and him.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
here I am trying to mold 3 guitar players into
Wow.
3 guitar parts into
Which
one
is such a
acoustic part.
challenge,
I mean, it's
too.
tough.
But I could see you doing that. 'cause
Yeah, I know.
And
you're
enjoying
talented.
it.
Yeah, and then you understand like how when you have a famous like composition like a classical piece and you have to make it for piano, and let's say it was for an orchestra.
Right.
And you have to
I
choose
love when
what
those
parts
things
am I
get
going to put
changed.
on this piano song.
Yeah.
You're going to obviously leave some stuff out.
Well,
you only have 2
I
hands.
just want to say for anyone who's
Yeah.
listening and watching us at
Yeah.
this podcast is they should look you up,
Oh, that's so nice of you. Thank
Brent
you.
Look.
Just type in my name. It
Yes,
comes
Yeah,
in.
and
I know,
because
which is so
You're
awesome.
you're an individual, like I just said about the 2 other guys, that when you start playing a guitar, it's
talented.
It's mesmerizing. It's like wow.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
talented.
Yeah, I'm always trying to get better and better and better. You know, it's so funny. Like Richie Blackmore told me, you know, like a artist, they say you want to get here skill wise. You want to get to this level, and he told me this is the second time I spent time with him. He told me, he goes, but then you get there. And you're like, you know what? I really want to go here, and it just keeps
That's
going.
the best of. That's scale.
Richie Blackmore, and you'll understand this, used to be or was the guitarist for Deep Purple.
Okay.
So when you met all the guys from I produced
Yes,
the Deep Purple
that's
DVD.
right. They had Steve Morris, I bet. Right?
No,
Steve
it was Steve Morris. Yes. Yeah.
That was a fun night.
All the guys at Deep Purple that day were all hanging out with Tiffany.
Yeah.
They all wanted to
I thought it was my
backstage.
almost famous day.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
like that movie, like
No,
the
I got
back,
you.
the
Totally,
ones
so
always
cool.
hanging out.
And when I over the years producing shows, I always would bring a guitar and have the band sign it afterwards. And a lot of times I use that guitar for I would give it to a charity or something to be sold off and auctioned off because it would be signed by all these great people. And that particular day, I said, Tiffany, hey, your job today, because she wanted to come to the show and to see what's going on in producing a
I
live.
didn't really know any of the
music show.
music, but
Yeah, it's
She didn't
okay.
know the music that day either. And I said, just go around because they're all like wanted to talk to Tiffany and hang out with her.
Yeah.
I said, just have all the guys sign it. So she had all the guys sign it, but didn't have Morris sign it. And then he came over to her and was like, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not getting to sign the guitar?
so funny.
Yeah. Do you want my autograph? No. No, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's a hard role to fill. You know, when you get famous people in the band and you replace them,
Oh,
Yes,
I know.
yes.
that's a lot
Isn't
of
it the
stress.
guy from Journey did that, right?
Yeah, they got the singer
that's
when they
the-
replaced him.
The
That was
singer
so crazy.
from the Philippines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was crazy.
You
about
replace
that.
somebody really famous, that's a tough thing.
Yeah.
That is so
And
crazy.
he actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did
not-
really
resurrected the
not
band
the same as
to a
Steve
degree.
Perry. What's
yeah.
that?
I mean, it resurrected
And
the
they found him on
band.
YouTube, I think.
Yeah. I know.
Yes.
So YouTube is quite a
YouTube
interesting
is a
thing.
big deal.
And because of that, In Excess tried to do the same thing.
Yes.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they tried to replace and find someone to replace Michael Hutchinson, but that
That's
didn't work
tough.
out.
Yeah,
I think they had a- I
sometimes
think
it
they
doesn't
created
work.
But I think they created a television, like a reality show, to try to find the new band member.
Wow.
Years ago, but
Wow.
didn't work out.
Yeah, you'll find people, but it's got to gel with the band too. You got to gel.
It does. It has to work. Well, it's exciting. Fun day.
Yeah, fun day.
So we appreciate you sitting with us,
I had a great time.
chatting and talking.
I had a great time.
So
You know,
much fun.
We look forward to you showing up at the house every week now,
I know. I
twice a
feel
week.
so grateful.
Well, I'm not coming today.
You're
I
not
didn't
coming today?
make one
Okay.
for today.
Okay.
But we'll do next Thursday, but I'll see you on Saturday.
Awesome.
I'll see you on
And
Saturday.
we'll
Girls will.
very soon be going to
Record.
record.
I want to do it at Criteria if we
Yeah.
can do it. That'd be wonderful. Well, and I love that place. So
So check out Brent Look and
you so
check out
much.
the Ruffles.
check out the Ruffles and Brent. Follow us.
Follow us.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So we'll get that done. And I'm really excited because I'm ready for us to start the next song with the Ruffles Band.
Okay.
So I need that when you have a chance.
Which is another interesting and great thing about your career and what you bring to the table, especially people listening, is that we're sitting with a guy that if you've got a family and
The range is
the range
huge.
of looking and wanting to produce or
Yeah.
create a band.
I've done it. You know, I even worked at that Pinecrest School for a while, part-time because I couldn't do full-time. I was too busy.
Right.
But my big thing was like, can you make bands for us, like rock bands?
Yeah.
So I created like 3 rock
We
bands
need
in
more.
one school.
We need more
Yeah.
bands. And there's a lot of talented kids out there that just
It is amazing.
don't have the
these
opportunity.
Kids. Yeah.
Yeah, when they gave me the thing and they said, you want to do this at the school? You'll create these bands? I'm like, that's great. I would love to do that to get these kids into this. Because music was a bigger part in school years ago.
Appreciate you being with us
Thank
today.
you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening.
Bye,
The
everyone.
iDesign Lab.
iDesign Labs podcast is an SW Group production in association with the 5-Star and TW Interiors. To learn more about iDesign Lab or TW Interiors, please visit twinteriors.com.